to see everybody back with us this evening, and we've got lots of exciting news coming up, as well as Paul Thompson, who's our guest for this week's Inside Out. So, you know, he's always very interesting. What have you guys been up to? Have you got anything you want to pitch into that and kind of prompt them about or anything?
Oh, I can't think of anything.
Not much. I'm getting ready to go to Missouri actually tomorrow to go pick up a car I've got in the restoration shop. So I'm hoping the snow is going to hold off. 66 Mustang's been floating around the family for a while.
Kidding,
so I had about
kidding.
3 months waiting to get into the restoration shop, and you know, every couple of weeks I get a call, and the estimate list it's like the money pit. It's just, you know, so I got to go there and just get it before it gets any longer, more
that's
expensive.
Great. That's real exciting. And so it's a convertible, right?
I wish it was.
Oh, now come on, kid. You've got to have a convertible. How much will it cost you to have it converted? Is it worth that?
No, I'm not going to say.
Well, we'll keep tabs on you
Okay.
and your car.
Okay.
And in the meantime, we're going to let you keep tabs on what's going on in Oklahoma City. We're going to start out with some local news. In Oklahoma City, one of Oklahoma City's most popular mainstream ministers is under fire for her stand on solidarity and equality for everyone. Reverend Kathy McCallie of Epworth United Methodist Church is facing charges of disobeying the church by performing holy unions for same-sex couples. While the Methodist denomination is still struggling with gay and lesbian issues, the congregation at Epworth had made a decision last summer to continue treating every couple with dignity and respect for their relationship. Methodist churches in other parts of the country are performing holy unions, and that doesn't seem to be causing any flap. But here in the Midwest, this is such a conservative area that it looks like some of these particular leaders, church leaders, are really going to be the ones leading this battle. In Austin, Texas, a Methodist minister there is facing some similar charges. In more about holy unions, I think I lied to you last week when I was talking to you about some mock marriages going to be taking place over at the United Life Church. These are not going to be mock marriages. These are going to be the real thing. The Reverend over there is going to be conducting a day full of weddings, holy unions, and wedding vow renewals, all on Friday, February the 14th, which is Valentine's Day. The Reverend Flo Hoft will be conducting those services, and they're going to be taking place every 30 minutes throughout the day, beginning at 10 o'clock in the morning and ending at 6 o'clock in the evening. And if you want more information on taking part in this so that you can make a real commitment to your partner, please give the church a call. Their number is 946-6753, and they'll be glad to supply you with all the details. In the Oklahoma City metro area, there is already a shortage of services for people who have HIV and AIDS. And just this last week, it looks like that shortage got even worse. The Open Your Heart Foundation closed its residence home for people with HIV and AIDS. A spokesperson for the Open Your Heart Foundation said they were hoping that this would be a temporary thing. The home was closed, he said, because it was draining off so much of their funding for their other services, and so they decided that the other services really needed to take precedence. People who were displaced by that shutdown have been relocated, and they are still eligible for other services with Open Your Heart. The agency spokesperson said that they would be planning a new home in the future, but that was going to be depending on getting financial support from other agencies. Stay tuned, and I'm going to turn it over to the guys for this week's national news.
Thank you, Paula. In New York, 2 men have been charged with running an AIDS medicine black market operation. Juan Veras and Leonardo Pena have both been charged with illegally selling a variety of AIDS medications from AZT to Inverase. Authorities say an 8-month undercover investigation revealed that the 2 men were selling medications they received from the state's Medicaid program using forged prescriptions. They then sold the prescriptions at reduced prices to others in New York as well as around the world. If convicted, the 2 men could face jail terms ranging from 15 years to life in prison. In Pensacola, Florida, the lesbian mother who had become a national symbol for injustice in the ongoing battles over child custody has died. Mary Ward had been fighting for the custody of her 12-year-old daughter for several years. A judge awarded custody of the girl to her father in 1995, even though John Ward had been convicted in 1974 for the murder of his first wife. Human rights activists across the country became involved in this bizarre case, which made national headlines. But today, Mary's battle is over. Mary, at the age of 47, died suddenly of a heart attack. Those close to her said the loss of her daughter and the court's adverse rulings against her may have precipitated her untimely death. After deliberating for nearly 5 hours, a civil jury in Lexington, Kentucky has awarded over $75,000 to a man who sued his former employer for sexual harassment. 53-year-old Kenneth Hillard, a truck driver, won the case against his former employer, Consolidated Freightways, and his supervisor, Jeff Brewer. Hillard claimed his supervisor repeatedly propositioned him to have sex while he was working for the company over a 2-year period. Brewer denied the claims, saying it was only off-color, tasteless humor, and it happened all the time with company employees. The company, however, said it had only received one complaint. Brewer left the company shortly after Hillard filed his lawsuit. State officials in Kentucky said these kinds of harassment cases had been rare until recently. Now they said 3 other cases have been filed with the state's Human Rights Commission.
In Harrisonburg, Virginia, the Coors Brewing Company has come a long way since the national boycott of nearly 2 decades. The Virginia company is now giving health benefits to live-in companions of its gay and lesbian employees. Coors officials said they don't know how many employees will take advantage of the benefits, saying some workers have expressed objections to the new policy. Under the program, Coors employees in Virginia and Tennessee may purchase dental, medical, and vision insurance through the company's group plan. The benefits were not extended to the live-in partners of heterosexual couples, since neither of those states recognize common law marriages. The new benefit was extended only to gay and lesbian employees, since they don't have a choice about living together without benefit of marriage. Activists across the country have praised Coors for their forward progress in equality. In Washington, D.C., the U.S. Supreme Court gave Topeka's hate-mongering minister the ultimate snub. They refused to hear his case. The Reverend Fred Phelps had been ordered by a lower court to observe a buffer zone around churches there in Topeka, preventing him and his family from holding anti-gay protests too close to church members. Phelps is widely known for his protest actions, especially at the funerals of people who have died of AIDS, whether they were gay or straight, men, women, or children. His actions had angered many of the citizens of Topeka, who took him to court. When Phelps tried to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, they simply ignored him, giving no reason for not hearing his appeal. Citizens of Topeka applauded the High Court's decision. And in San Francisco, Mayor Willie Brown is serious about enforcing the city's newly enacted domestic partnership policy. In a recent decision, city council members ruled that all companies doing business with the city of San Francisco must also provide domestic partnership benefits beginning June 1st. This new policy has hit several companies hard, including American Airlines and United Airlines, both of which lease space at the airport from the city. Neither of these companies provide domestic partnership benefits to its employees, but if they want to keep their contract with the city of San Francisco, Mayor Brown said they'd better change that before June 1st. In addition to the airlines, other businesses will be affected by the ruling as well, including Hertz, which has a branch office here in Oklahoma City. Please stay tuned for this week's Inside Out.
Want to thank everybody for staying with us for this week's edition of Inside Out. Joining us as our guest this evening, as we mentioned earlier, is Paul Thompson, and he's the male co-chair of the Oklahoma Gay and Lesbian Political Caucus. Paul's always got a variety of things to talk to us about, and I know high on the priority list, and I really want to zero right in on this, is the upcoming school board elections, which is February the 11th, this coming Tuesday.
Right, and I left a mailing meeting tonight that we're getting a mailing out tonight. Will be in the mail tomorrow about that, about the school board millage, and about the library millage.
Okay. Now, the purpose, we had Lee Brawner on our show last week, and he filled the audience in quite the bit about what was going on with the library millage. And so, just for brevity's sake and kind of a refresher, you can mention that. But I really want to talk about some of these candidates.
Well, the thing I would say is I would just, let's not get complacent because the OCAF people said they're not going to challenge the libraries, because it would be just like them to just lie and go around and tell a whole bunch of people to go vote against
actually, the truth on that is OCAF did promise that they would not target the library millage. Family-friendly libraries, however, has not made that same promise, so that threat is certainly still there.
We need to take it as a serious threat.
We need to be very careful about that.
Yes.
Now, I know the Oklahoma Gay and Lesbian Political Caucus had conducted a survey of some of the potential school board candidates, and you did get some responses back from some of those.
Total of 5 responses out of about 40 that we sent out.
Is this the first time you've sent out this kind of survey?
On school board elections, and the questions are different, very different than the ones that we get. We got a total of 5 responses, 3 of which were not signed and had no return address on them, so it didn't help us to score those candidates. One of the people that returned a candidate is, or a survey, is Pamela Buzzard from the Luther School Board. She's running for the Luther School Board, and she got a score of 20 out of a possible 30.
Well, before we talk about the scoring, let's talk about what was on that survey.
Okay.
What kind of questions were you asking them about?
Well, we started off with a question. One of the things that's been contentious for several of the minority groups is that the last time there was a school bond issue that was a building school bond issue, they did not hire a bond fund manager, and there was a lot of mistakes made with the management of the money. So one of the first things we asked was if there was another school bond. This is different than the millage election. This is a construction bond or a capital improvement bond. Would they hire a school bond fund manager? And all of the candidates that answered that said yes. We also.
Let me ask you about that. Would this mean that the next time we voted for improvements in the schools, like air conditioning, which we did a few years ago and still has not been completed, that we would have some way of holding them accountable for those funds?
Yes.
So our kids that are sitting in there in these un-air conditioned schools, and there's not really anything we can do about it.
There's a whole lot of things that have cropped up as big problems that would not have had a problem if they had a bond fund manager. They thought they could manage the money themselves. Obviously, they could not. We also talked about things that were everything from teacher salaries, whether they thought the teacher salaries were adequate. We talked about age-appropriate sex education in the schools. We talked about were they for diversity training? Were they for problem solving and conflict solving problems? Education for kids. So we talked about all that sort of thing, and we also talked about whether or not they would support people's right to work without discrimination because of their sexual orientation or marital status.
Now, who did you work with to help put together these questions on the service? Those questions were very good.
We have some school teachers who at least work with us in the organization, and so we did do some talking with school teachers, and then we have also at various points connected with some of the teachers' union organizations about those things.
Back to the list. The 5 candidates that did respond were?
The 2 we don't know. One was Pamela Buzzard for office number 2 in the Luther School Boards. One was Willie Lawrence in the Millwood School Board. He got a plus 13 out of a possible plus 30. We got a letter from the VOTEC candidate Henry M. Asen, who said that he did not fill out the survey because the survey questions were more geared to regular public schools, but he gave us a good informative letter that is very pro-diversity, very pro concern for
Good,
minorities,
good.
so we gave him a thing on that. We did not get anything from an Oklahoma City School Board person, but we have gotten quite a bit of information from the Ebony Tribune on James McHenry.
Okay, they're wrapping us up,
Okay,
so
we
if people
included that
need
thing.
information.
We got real quick, February 14th, between 12 and 1 at the county courthouse in Oklahoma City, we're going to have a thing to support gay, lesbian, and same-sex marriage. Please come down and join us.
Okay, and I'll make a reminder at the end of the show. If you need more information on the school board elections, please give Paul a call at 791-0202. He'll be more than glad to bring you up to date. Don't forget to go vote on the 11th. Thank you. Stay with us. We'll be back for more of the program.
Well, thanks for staying with us tonight. How are you ladies doing tonight?
Doing great.
Doing pretty well.
Well, good. Nancy, some people out there, they think that you and I are married because we have
Oh.
the same last name.
Because we have the-
You know
yeah.
that? Well, I don't even think you know that I'm your type, right?
Well, not exactly.
Okay,
but-
you know, hence our show, right?
Right. I don't think you're even my brother, are you?
No, we're not even related.
Not
Just have
even
the same
related.
name. Kind of a
Yes.
coincidence there.
Jones is pretty common, I guess.
Yeah, just a little bit. Well, in our world news tonight, 6 months after becoming the 4th nation to legalize marriage-like gay partnerships, Iceland has gone a step further by banning mistreatment of anyone based on sexual orientation. One new law criminalizes any action that humiliates, degrades, slanders, or defames any individual or a group. A second law makes it a crime to deny a service or commercial transaction based on sexual orientation. Corrections Department officials in New South Wales, Australia, are taking bold new steps in trying to prevent the spread of HIV. Prison systems worldwide have developed a serious problem with HIV infection, since HIV-infected prisoners can easily spread the disease among the entire prison population. From there, it stands a good chance on getting into the mainstream population once the prisoners are released. To stem the tide, the prison officials are now making condoms available to prisoners free of charge. Officials are also talking about making dental dams available to women prisoners as well. Things are really moving forward in Western Austria this year as the police service in Perth reached out to the local gay and lesbian community. The police force there has now appointed a full-time liaison officer who will work with the police department and the local gay community to ease community relations. The officer, who is a 17-year veteran of the force, said he was pleased with the appointment. He also said he had every intention of being in the position for a number of years. I think Nancy has the rest of our world news.
Yes, I do. Even though he's been taking a lot of heat for the decision, Thai's education minister said he is not backing down. In January, Thai school officials enacted a ban on gay students at teacher colleges. The ban brought down a rainstorm of criticism from human rights activists around the world, accusing the college of violating human rights and perpetuating false stereotypes. But the education minister is not backing down, saying he did not want gay students being used as role models for other students. Officials for the health authority in Edinburgh, Scotland, have told doctors there to stop prescribing combination HIV drugs for the next 2 months. The combination of nucleoside analogs and protease inhibitors can cost up to $20,000 a year, and health officials say they just don't have the money to pay for them. AIDS activists are worried about the outcome of this situation, since the availability of these drugs is a life or death situation for many people who have HIV. Activists said the feelings in Edinburgh was one of total and utter despair and disbelief. After years of failed negotiations, human rights activists are now calling for a boycott of Romanian wines. Leaders of an international gay and lesbian rights group said Romania is still putting gay men and lesbians behind bars for simply talking about being gay. While Romania passed a law saying private sexual relations between consenting adults was permitted, government officials passed some new laws banning any activity where 2 or more gay people might gather to talk to share information, such as gay bars, gay organizations, gay media, or anything that might cause a public scandal, such as a pride parade. Violators of these new laws face up to 5 years in prison. The boycott is aimed at wine, since it is the country's most visible consumer export, with 25 million liters exported annually. The biggest producer is a company called Vin Export, which produces about 80% of the export supply. The boycott is targeted markets in a dozen different countries, including the United States. And now here's Connie with our health news.
The death rate for people with AIDS has dropped in New York City by a striking 30% in what public health officials are calling a likely harbinger of a national trend. But that encouraging news was tempered by more evidence that the epidemic is raging in some segments of the population, including young blacks and Hispanics. Dr. Harold Jaffe, a top AIDS official for the Atlanta CDC, said two very clear messages are being sent. One, that improved care and new drug combinations are helping people with AIDS live longer and better. And two, additional education efforts are going to have to be done to keep these minority communities from becoming even more infected. Dr. Jaffe said that helping patients live longer is only half the battle. The other half is to keep them from becoming infected in the first place. To do that, he said, more public health programs are needed. A new drug called Viracept may now be able to help AIDS patients who have not shown improvement with the new protease inhibitors. Protease inhibitors, given in combination with other anti-AIDS drugs, have shown a remarkable effect on AIDS patients, but not all AIDS patients. For those who can't take the combination drugs, this new Viracept is supposed to be about 61% effective in reducing the viral load of HIV in the blood. The manufacturer of the new drug, Agaron, said they were expecting FDA approval for Viracept during the first half of this year. During a recent health conference, leading AIDS researchers said Marcus Welby can't do AIDS anymore, meaning family practitioners just aren't qualified to manage AIDS patients. Researchers said state-of-the-art AIDS treatment required a special level of expertise and experience, although they stopped short of calling for a new specialty field to be created like cardiology or dermatology. Researchers are worried that AIDS may become even more of a problem for public health and harder to treat in the future if wrong treatment decisions are made or if patients don't take their medications correctly. Researchers are calling on physicians in rural areas to become more experienced in this field since AIDS has become a real problem in rural areas. In larger cities, physicians qualified to treat the disease are usually easy to find. Nick's not here this week, so we'll be right back with Chuck in this week's media news.
Here we go.
We're back for a little bit of media gossip. It looks like the old cliche, time heals all wounds, has come true, at least this time. There was a lot of scuttlebutt about why Tom Cruise and John Travolta were sitting together during last month's Golden Globe Awards, but it looks like that there was really nothing juicy going on there. Seating at the awards is done by the studios, which each nominated studio buying a table. The table these two were sitting at included a third person in the scenario, Kelly Preston, who, as you know, is John Travolta's wife. Preston is starring with Cruise in his current hit, Jerry Maguire. Travolta decided to sit at the Columbia TriStar table, even though there had been some bad blood between him and Roman Polanski in the past. During the filming of The Double, Travolta walked off the set because Polanski wanted him to appear nude. But evidently, that's all in the past. That's behind him. The streets of Park City were crowded this year for the annual Sundance Film Festival, and the crowd was none too happy about it. The lack of intimacy at the festival apparently left many of those attending with short tempers. One of those was Emilio Estevez, who was caught making an ugly scene at a sushi restaurant. There was no shortage of talent or films to see, but tickets for the festival were at a premium. The Sundance has also been about discovering new talent, and most of the films from that premiere are quickly picked up for distribution. Some of the better ones to see include a coming-of-age lesbian film called All Over Me, starring Alison Folland, who was absolutely great in To Die For. Watch for her again in February. As always, film producers are always great sources for gossip, and the recent Los Angeles premiere of Evita was no exception. This time, though, the star of the movie was not at the center of the buzz. Instead, the excitement was about the love lives of two blonde male entertainment reporters, one past and one present. The whispers began when a famous musician arrived with a gorgeous blonde man and his companion. Sources say this mystery man is not only a former national TV journalist, but that he is also the former boyfriend of a noted theater director. The question is, are they more than just friends? The big moment came, however, when a famous male sports figure was interviewed on the red carpet by a reporter who was rumored to be his lover. But no one knows for sure, since they both kept things very professional during the premiere. Wasn't that nice of them? Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
We want to thank you for staying with us for tonight's program. Like I said, we had lots of exciting news, and I hope you are appreciating all the changes that we're trying out. We're using you all as guinea pigs, and certainly the deal is if you're liking these, let us know. If you don't like them, let us know. Just remember to be kind. And don't forget, our talkback line number is 945-1908, and which, by the way, we had 4 calls on last week. It kind of slacked off. People evidently didn't have much to say. And I checked the messages this week, and there were 4 of them on there. 3 of them were all real positive. People were real surprised to find out after all this time the show was on. One guy said he found our news depressing, and I hated hearing that, but, you know, we'll work on that. We'll try to add a little more life and energy into things, but we're glad to know people are watching. Do you guys want to add anything before we wrap it up?
Well, we were working our camera and crew people to death this week with all this new camera
Yes,
angle
we
stuff that
were,
we're trying
and-
everything. So really appreciate all the stuff they've done.
They did a great job.
Yeah.
And I promised Paul Thompson I would squeak this in. February the 14th, not only is United Life Church doing the Holy Union ceremonies, but there's also a political protest action taking place to protest Oklahoma's ban on same-sex marriages. If you need to get some information, if you want to get involved with that, call him. The number's been up on the screen. Good night.
Good night.
We'll see everybody back here next week.